Hey everyone, Dave here from JKP Holdings. Good afternoon, Mr. Nathan Turner. We're flying solo. How are you today?
Day. Yes, indeed. Yeah, no, it's good. It's a rainy day, but otherwise,
Oh,
yeah, doing well.
oh, it's nasty. The leaves are falling. Our
Yeah.
neighborhood's getting a little frustrated because the leaf pickup was last week and it's like nothing's fallen. So it's been it's been one of those weeks. How's your week
Yeah.
been?
It's been good. Just kind of catching up from being home, which wasn't too bad. Bought a note this week. But yeah, no, it's
What
been good.
week will you buy now?
It was good. Actually, it was supposed to close last week, but got held over till this week, but that's fine.
Yeah. CFD
It's a
first.
mortgage down in North Carolina.
Cool.
Uh, Bought it for 24. Looks like we're not sure. There's some equity there, so either we're going to finish the foreclosure. It's a vacant property, deceased
Okay.
borrower. We'll either finish off the foreclosure and it'll either sell at auction or we'll take it back. We'll do better if we take it back, but we'll see.
Interesting. I'm more and more against buying these vacant homes for multiple reasons, right?
Yeah,
It's so hard, right? Especially in today's world, you don't know what is around the corner, and things are so tight margin wise.
yeah.
Um,
That's the biggest risk is on a vacant property because then you never know what you're going to get when you get inside there.
yeah.
This one looks well maintained. The daughter lives next door, so I think it's going to be okay, but we'll see.
Well, I know we bought two right before we went away, small ones from another investor kind of thing.
Yeah,
Both occupied, performing loans. They were not great deal, but the investor had to get out, and we knew him well, so we closed kind of just to keep cash flowing. Right now,
yeah,
we have some capital ready to go,
yeah,
and it's interesting that these deal flows are what they are. People are talking about buying things. And we met a lot of people. We'll get into it in a few minutes, but we have to make sure we're buying smart, not just buying, right?
yeah.
I hope people don't say, "Well, they bought, I should buy," because it doesn't mean you should buy just because someone else buys.
No, and it's a fine line because on the one hand, you don't want to buy dumb, but at the same time, if you don't buy anything, then you're not making any money.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you still got to be smart about it, but at the same time, you do have to put that money to work. Otherwise, it's not doing anything. And
Absolutely. And we see a lot of newer investors talk about this stuff, right? And either they're confused or lost, they're not sure what to do.
Yeah,
And they want to jump in. And every time we turn around, there's some gotchas that we deal
yeah,
with, right? And then we hate, but we know it's part of what we do. And
yeah.
we hope
Part of the
that
game.
that just doing the job, we hear a lot of these, people say, just jump in. And I get that theory, but it's still dangerous. It's not a space to jump in on.
No, that's the thing, and it's I find a lot of people they're in that danger zone where they know just enough to get themselves into trouble.
Yep.
They might be okay, but they're kind of going off a little bit half cocked. And now you got to make sure you've dialed it in. And
Yeah.
if you don't mind, and you just want to learn something, and you don't mind learning hard knocks, and
Yeah.
you most likely won't lose everything, but you might lose some money. But if you're okay with
No,
that, then give it a shot.
yeah. It's quite interesting you say that because we push a lot of brand new investors, and we talked about it before, to get into that performing world.
Yeah,
So you don't lose your shirt, but you also learn what the process is. Because part of this is just a process.
yeah.
You get that signed contract on a performing note, you're still nervous the first time.
Oh, sure.
Did you do it right? Is there something I'm missing? What's to come next? Now, if you're a new investor and you double it up with non-performers, and
Yeah.
you don't even know what service you're going to go to and what you should do next, I can see how that can be quickly overwhelming.
For sure. Even with the performing, there's that hesitation of like waiting for that first payment to come in and
Yeah.
making sure that you're actually going to be able to
I was
collect.
talking to another investor last night, seasoned investor, and they're not going crazy, right? And they're buying performing and non-performing assets, but they struggle with the idea that sellers want this dollar amount that's ridiculous right now.
Yeah.
And it's percentage. And that's okay, right? You don't have to buy because the dollar amount what it is, or there was a tape recently, 90% of UPB for like 300 performers. And it's like, well,
Right.
it may work for some people. And
Maybe.
depending on the interest rate, it probably won't work for me unless the interest rate's real high.
Right.
That cross comparison. So let's jump into it.
Yeah.
Note Expo 2021. I've heard people on which I'm getting learned about Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. I don't do much of it. That was one of the best conferences Note Expos held ever.
Oh, very good. Very good. No, it was a really good event. Really, really good event.
And I think that the energy was what made it so enjoyable, right?
Yeah, a lot of like pent up, like everyone just wants to get out and see each other again.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal, just being able to be in the same room again and shaking hands and going out for dinner, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. And I think for me, understanding what that looks like and feeling that we are doing everything we should do in the space to learn.
Yeah.
Sometimes about learning from other people and realizing what they do and what, how they do things always helps me understand things better.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you have to be seasoned investor, no investor for me to learn from you. Right.
No, that's just it. Sometimes somebody that's new will come up and they'll say, well, I've got this situation and this is what I think I'm going to do. And go, oh, that's really smart. I wouldn't have thought of that, but good on you. That's great.
And I think also is, some people's backgrounds and what they're good at is also interesting. Like I was talking to people that just do things that I never done before.
Right.
And it's like their J job or their back experience. Like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah.
They're rehabbers. I did a little bit of it, not a lot, but I did a little bit to realize that I don't like it. But they were teaching and educating. I'm like, whoa, I can learn from you a lot here. And it doesn't have to be anything else.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of my favorite things about this business is there's so many ways to do it. Yeah. We'll talk about what we do. That's not necessarily the way. There are all kinds of ways you can do this. And, so much of it boils down to preference. Yeah. So I like that a lot. I think that's a lot of fun.
We want to make this a little interacting. We were debating about letting people come on our Zoom call with us, and we just didn't do it. So I want to make sure we interact with those people who are on our Facebook Live and everything else. Aaron said hello. I see Vanessa say hello. Cody, hopefully it's not raining in Oregon. Maybe it is, but hopefully it's not.
Usually it's
hello. I see William Smitty's on here.
Good.
Yeah, so we have some great situations. And we're going to dive into some of the stuff that we learned, what we took back, some of the parts of the conference that we walked in on and we learned from, what we talked about, as well as what we dealt with other people and some stories. We want to share. Feel free to put in the feed a story you may know that you experienced that you think that other people would enjoy.
Right.
Let's keep this respectful, right? We're all enjoying a Friday afternoon and keep the stories as nice as possible. So Nathan, you spoke at Note Expo. For those who weren't there, can you give a quick summary of what you talked about?
Yeah, sure. Then we'll get to yours as well. So I did Note Expo did a new thing they're calling Note Talks. So kind of TED Talks, but notes. And that was really fun. Actually, I had fun preparing that and kind of giving my speech. And so that was fun. 15 minutes to talk about whatever I wanted. I chose to talk about kind of my journey and where I came from and how I got to where I am today. And so I kind of crammed 10 plus years into 15 minutes. And
that sounds really easy to do.
Yeah, no, it was great. No, and it was really fun. And what it really came down to was I was at a point here just 5-7 years ago, something like that. But where I had all kinds of experience and all kinds of, knowledge and notes. But I wasn't succeeding as much as I wanted to. And I certainly wasn't having as much fun as I should. And so I was feeling frustrated and kind of feeling stuck. And talking to a friend of mine who actually works for RBC Canada, and he was talking about getting me a job as a mortgage broker. And so I was frustrated enough that I was actually considering getting a real job, and that was a big deal. But anyway, so he lives a couple hours away, and sat down with him over dinner one night, and I was just kind of venting and talking about all the stuff that was frustrating me and stuff. And he said, "So what do you want to do?" And I just said, and I was totally flabbergasted. I had no words because I realized that I hadn't thought about that for years. It had been years since I actually thought about what do I want to do. And I had my why, my family and everything. And I knew why I wanted to do all that I wanted to do, but I didn't have a plan, like a real solid plan that I had come up with, something that I wanted to do. And so it was like literally the next morning, my wife and I were kept on driving for another 3.5 hours. And she got out pen and paper and said, "All right, so what do you want to do?" And we came up with really what I'm doing now, which is fantastic. And I really I cannot believe we don't have that same piece of paper. We threw it out at some point.
Put it on the wall.
Oh, I wish we would have kept it.
It's good for you guys out there too, is that accountability partner, but just challenge each other, right?
Yeah.
And putting it out there, it's weird, a lot of people say I work 12 hours and all that stuff, and I'll say I did this, but then I realized the time I spend behind my computer is hours.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, if I put that into a W-2 job, how many hours a week I'm working?" And it's not that it's only investing side, right? The business side, the marketing side, all this stuff, all these little pieces.
Yeah.
It's a million hours, but I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So it is, I love my spreadsheets, right? And I enjoy challenging myself with that stuff. Yeah. And we all have our thing. That's awesome that you spent the time to really dive in. That's important.
And then, in fact, something I didn't get to talk about, but so we started doing that. And then it was within a year, it might've been our second year. And my wife and I did a house swap with my parents. So they came to watch the kids and we went over to their house and had 3 days. And my parents kind of thought it was some kind of a vacation for us. And no, we were solid working, from when we got up in the morning until, 8-9 o'clock at night, just rehashing everything and just looking at all of our systems and analyzing what we were doing. Could it be done better? Do we need to do something different? Is something add, something to subtract? And really dialing it in and just kind of, fine tuning everything. And that was extremely useful and helpful.
That seems so interesting you say that, because I think a lot of people miss out on that.
Yeah. But it's essential. Yeah, it's got to be done.
And I think it's something we should do regularly. I think it's something we should focus on, something that we don't do just once and be done.
Yeah. And my wife and I actually, we do a monthly, she's my partner and everything, but we do a monthly meeting the first week or so, sometime in the first week, whatever day works best for both of us. And we actually go through every asset, everything that we own, what's coming up, what are some challenges we've got with particular assets.
Cool.
What's for sale, all that kind of thing, like trying to kind of predict our income, all that sort of thing. And just every month.
In the weeds easily.
Yes.
And just be stuck in the weeds, and having that. And I encourage you guys, we've debated about bringing this group into a point where we're doing other things of, weight loss competition, because work life can get sucked in, and just do something different. But I'd like to have that ability to have people accountability partners, because that's essential. And someone who understands the space can understand that struggle, right?
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't have a clue about the space makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Because they can't get you out of the weeds often. They can help, but it's tough.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
We come up. I'll show you actually. So we come up with this is our green paper. I won't give you too much of a
I like it. Every month. Sneak peek.
Yeah. And we just talk about, what's listed, what are some properties that we expect to get listed this month, some notes that we've got, what's performing, what are we expecting to be able to sell there, what do we see for next month, closings coming up, all that kind of thing, and just outline all of that. That's our first thing. That's what I kind of focus on, and then we go through and talk about everything, all the different assets, everything we've got.
Cool.
Yeah. Very useful.
It sounds like a really good thing. And I agree that the crowd this was probably the first conference I was at where inside the conference room was majority time full and outside was quite empty.
Fascinating.
Hugely rare for those who that was the first conference. That's not something common. They're usually begging people to get back inside.
Yeah.
They were doing that, but the room when we spoke was really full. He was
Yeah.
well done,
And
high
out in the
five.
hall was pretty much empty,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is unusual. Most of the time
Yes.
we're out in the hall, making deals and, rubbing shoulders, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and chatting with people.
But it was really good to see that. And some of the old school people were there. They didn't know who anyone else was, seemed like. They were in their own bubble, which is good to interact with them.
Yeah. That's good.
So for me, I was on a panel, was all about social media. And it was interesting to hear the other gentleman conversation about that and the thought process of it. Because they come from much higher level than I do, right?
Mhm.
You have Quan, who's really good at marketing. He's on all his Instagram stuff. And I was learning from them that I'm not good at that stuff, but it's something that I don't know if I want to be good at that. I'm staying in my lane. And I talked about how social media like this and Facebook and all that stuff, just sharing ideas and having that accountability partner, asking questions is key. And some people are scared to post, answer questions because they don't look like an idiot. But what you find out is that you're not an idiot. The teacher said that, if you have the question, someone else in the room also has the question.
Yeah.
And also people like teaching. People love to give response. They finally know the answer to this. They could jump in and give you the answer that they learned a year ago and they feel good about it. So I encourage people to ask questions. One question was, how do you know who's posting and responding is truthful and honest? And what we all kind of said was that gets weed out quickly. Those who are in the business and know what's going on will weed out those people pretty quickly. To the point where they just either don't comment, they're out of whatever section, group, whatever they're on. But we talked about just getting yourself active. I run a Facebook group, but those guys run, pages and Instagram and stuff like that. I was amazed of the differences all of us had with the same mission. Is just getting our brand out there.
Yeah.
And learning from each other and working our brand, because our brand is our everything. Everyone knowing your name is a key thing, because then people come up to you. I'm sure you had it. We had people come up to us that we've never met. They knew us from our face, and that's it. And that's okay. We recognize the name or something, and we catch that. And it was cool to have that conversation.
Yeah.
CP, yes, this
really
is
cool.
live, by the way. Someone asked if this is live. Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes. And maybe a little delayed, but it's definitely live. So, for me, understanding how others take it, right? They were talking about sales funnels and stuff like that. And for me, majority of us don't know what a sales funnel is. We've probably been in them, didn't know we were, and stuck in that trap. And most of us are not going to get into that, into there. But what you can get into is just getting your name. We had Cindy come up to us, like shaking her hand. I've never met Cindy before, but she's on every single one we have every Friday. And just to say hi to her was awesome, because she's always here, right? It's like Cody's always here. And because that name comes up so much, we connect with her and we have that connection just because of that. And her name becomes something we recognize because they post a lot, because they comment a lot, because they're involved a lot. What I also realized that the crowd, I saw all different ages, right? From someone who's in their 60s to someone in their 20s.
Yeah.
And I was like, what can both people do to be successful online? And the thing is, for those who are older, it's just getting in these things and just posting and answering questions. Keep it simple.
Right.
For those who are more on the younger side and technology, help the ones who are older get their name out there, right? You may not have the capital, but you can work with them in getting their branding on Instagram and all these kind of photos and working with them, that connection. That was really, really cool.
That was a good panel.
Yeah, it was fun because it realized just a few years ago, social media was not much. It was not how we did things. My group was started in 2014, and I don't think there was many groups in 2016. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see that go on. But it was really, really good to hear how they work, and it's that I'm different and all that. But I encourage you. We talked offline, like, you got to get more social media.
I do. I need to get some help on that.
And it's exactly what it is. It's help. So walking around the halls, you met with some vendors. Did any vendors stand out before we get into talking about, other investors? Did any of the vendors surprise you, make you think, or some of you want to reach out to again?
Oh, let's see. A lot of the usual suspects. Is good to catch up with guys from Paper Stack and
Yeah.
got a new T-shirt from them, so that's nice.
Oh, nice.
um, yeah, a lot of them. Insurance. JB Lloyd is there.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd actually transferred away from them. I think I'm actually going to be going back
Okay.
and using their system. I like their system better than the one that I'm using right now, and
Okay.
that's fine. Bunch of guys, lawyers,
Yeah.
servicers, kind of a mix of everybody there.
There were a
Fuquan
lot
had a
of
table.
services there. I was quite surprised to see so many there, which is great, to
Yeah,
interact with them and shake their hand after a million emails back and forth for years.
yeah, a couple that I hadn't met before, so that was
Yeah.
interesting.
And I talked to some software tech guys. That's my realm, right? And I was
Right.
comparing what I do internally to what they do because they're more on the electric in the software side where they're builders.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, how do you guys do all this stuff? And I was picking their brain because I'm looking to add more our due diligence data portal that
Yeah.
people can go on to and say, okay, I did it for me, where these guys seem like they're doing it somewhat for investing, but more for sales, which is fun.
But it's even though meeting with the vendors, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually kind of a big deal.
Yes.
If you've got that face-to-face connection with them, for example, the First National people were there, First National Acceptance Company. So I have in the past, and I will most likely continue to sell notes to First National.
Yeah.
And we do a lot, over email and telephone sometimes, but it's rare. Yeah, but it's actually rare that we get to meet face to face. But when you do, that sets you apart, and it helps the whole relationship, and it helps business to get done easier. Not to say that they're not going to do business with you if you've never met, but it makes a difference if you can have that actual physical connection. That makes a difference.
Yeah, in shaking someone's hand is a whole lot different than constantly emailing, getting a phone call. It's weird. You kind of run up to these people and like, where you been? How you been? And you haven't seen them. We talk to Erin. We talk about Erin all the time, and she's on the feed.
Yeah,
we talk to people all the time, and we interact with them so much. It's nice to interact. So that's what we encourage you guys when we're there. Just shake your hand. We may not recognize who you are, and other people won't. But just butting yourself into a conversation is priceless. Yeah. I walked up to, I don't know, 24 people who they were talking. I just walked my way into the conversation, shook hands, and asked what they did.
Yeah.
Right.
And at lunchtime, it's really nice to sit down with friends. But you know what? I always make a point of sitting down with people I don't know.
Yeah.
So I would find that
we'll see you later. Yep.
Yeah. So there are 4 people at a table. 3 of them I don't know who they are. There's an empty table. 1 empty chair. So I'll come up and say, "Hey, is this free?" "Oh yeah, sure."
Yeah.
And that's how you meet people. And it's not a big deal because nobody cares, and everyone's there to meet people. So it helps.
Everyone's there to socialize and network. And those who are there and meet with their friends, that's for later, right?
Yeah.
Later in the night, as well as later when you get back home.
Right.
The key is here to interact and learn from other people. I went to some of the sessions that were on stage, and they were fabulous sessions, right? Mm-hmm. There were some really good panelists, but I was amazed by the investors that were there. It was some people that I had known, some people I didn't know, some people I'm looking forward to connecting again. But one thing I recognized too, and I'll go back to the people, is I didn't get as many emails I thought I would, right? Everyone gets home from these conferences, and they don't email everyone. I know you did, I know we did, but I encourage you guys, if you're listening, you got business cards, send your email out there. I know it's a pain in the butt to do, but you got to do it just to get your name out there. And remember, and if you have something you can tag along that you talked to them about, great. Mm-hmm. Did you meet any investors out there that knock your socks off that was really impressive, or someone you really enjoyed meeting and maybe you knew before?
You know what? I had a really nice, actually, both lunches. The first one, it was a father and a son, and they're both doing different things. The dad he buys foreclosures at auction. Has been his thing for years. And so he's bought hundreds and hundreds of these things. So we had some nice conversations there. The second day I had lunch, there's a really nice couple from California, and they were talking about how they'd kind of fell into creating notes, and they kind of similar to me. I kind of fell into creating notes, and they didn't exactly, I think they didn't realize how marketable that is, especially in California, in an appreciating market, with the equity that they were building in and all these things. I don't think they realize what a valuable thing that they have. So it was nice to just chat with them, and
It's
for them
weird
to
because
go,
with
oh,
those
really?
I sat down with some other people, similar story, right? They've been house flippers for years, and they're
Yeah.
like, we just learned last week that, and they were heard from Note School that you can become the bank that I've been buying for years at the auction, and they
Yeah.
just realized this,
Yeah.
and they're like astonished because like we can get it for even more of a discount and control the asset. They were flabbergasted with this
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah.
I think for me, you know, there were some people there that I met that does bulk emailing, bulk mailing. I'm like, I'm going to connect with them because that's something out of my bandwidth that I can handle. But I have a ton of stuff that we're trying to build up to do all that stuff. And I'd rather hand it to somebody else who's an investor and say, hey, bud, can you handle this for me? Than hand it to a third party servicer and say, listen, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a relationship connection there that makes it more important than just an investor.
Yeah, I'd like to meet that guy too. That would be good. I got some ideas.
We may actually have him on too. You know, I'll talk to him about seeing him come on one of our Friday sessions.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I think though, when I met with some investors, one of the common questions was like, I don't know how to get started.
Yeah.
And I tried breaking it down. What does that look like? Because we've talked about that before, and maybe they missed a session, but I think that a lot of people didn't know where to go. And that was the biggest question I kept coming back with. How can I ask the question of where do you get stuck? Where is it that you're getting stuck, or you're nervous, or you're scared? What is the situation that breaks you out? Because knowing the fact that I don't know how to get started is a big sentence.
Yeah.
I can't define where you're getting stuck at.
Yeah. Where's the sticking point there?
Yeah. And not knowing you don't know is huge too. I get that. That's true. But where do you start at? And I think breaking it down to what expenses you have, what state you're buying in, understanding those kind of rules is where to start at and performing. And I also met with some other investors that I haven't seen in a while. Most of them I knew, right? But there was a couple of investors that I had never met before, which is really cool. Shaking hands. I'll be speaking next Tuesday with an investor that I've never met before.
Oh, good.
But I met with some awesome people. I got to meet my mastermind crew and all that stuff, but I was sitting down with other investors, paper stack, and just asking questions, things that I didn't know answers to, and just, hey, what do you guys think?
How do you do this? Yeah.
I posted in the chat. If you guys have a favorite session or favorite story, feel free to share, and we're going to share it here as well. And one of the things was upcoming flow of non-performing loans, and love them or hate them, there's still a deal that stood out in Vanessa's world. The upcoming flow of non-performing loans is a big question mark. When we've asked every time we've had our session to every investor, we don't know when. We know there's a stockpile. We know it's going to be coming eventually. We just don't know when. And we've talked about repeatedly, make sure you're ready for when it does. That's more important than when. When it does, and I promise you, me and Nathan would be a lot more rich if we had what we had today back 2010.
Oh yeah. Oh, I wish.
Right. So having your systems in ready, and that means networking with people, really connecting. It may not show precedent now, but going to those conferences, asking questions, talking to attorneys. I hope those who went sat down or talked with Aaron Quinn or whoever for a few minutes just to pick their brain and say, hey, listen, and you get that reaction that they're not some attorney stuck up in a courtroom. They're real people.
And, attorneys, there was an attorney table there where I stopped and talked with her, and she covers states that I don't necessarily buy notes in, but she was actually surprised. She didn't know that this kind of community existed.
Wow.
So she was like, this is awesome. I'm like, oh yeah, we have a few times a year, different conferences, there's all of them. And so, for them, it was like, oh my goodness, there's, clients and work to do, which is what they're there for. But they didn't even know we existed. So, and most people don't.
And for those who are listening, maybe attorneys later on, actually on our portal, we're going to be listing any conferences that are coming up, so you can go and sign up. There's high levels, low levels, and that was a really good beginner to middle level conference. It was a really good focus on that kind of core. It wasn't too high, it wasn't a 5-star or whatnot, wasn't an MBA, but those investors, those attorneys really don't understand our world. They just get a file and read it. In our mastermind, we have an attorney who's been doing BK foreclosures, and he's like, I know nothing about investing. And it's amazing to hear that. But if you have your attorney on the same game plan of what you're looking to do, it's invaluable, because they know what your plans are, and you don't got to have a million conversations. It kind of makes sense for you. What was something for you that you took home and you are taking action? Was there something, I think we both talked about that morning session, right? The first morning. Was there something in any session that stood out where, like, I got to start doing X?
Mine was the online marketing. I've got to do that at all. I don't at all. And anybody who looks for me online, you'll find I'm not there. So I just haven't done any. So that, I think, is becoming more of a focus for me. And yesterday I put together a Facebook ad. I'll ask about that later and how that all works and stuff. But I think I've done that sort of thing before with Google ads in the past. But I've never done it on Facebook. So putting that together.
Nice.
Because I'm out looking for investors. And so that's, as much as I love the note community, most likely the people are looking to do it on their own. And so they're not looking to invest. But that's where I'm, kind of reaching out, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, social media is a huge thing. It's our best way to communicate. I was listening to a video with Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, and Mark Zuckerberg last night, and talk about what 5 years down the line that what we're doing right now is going to look like the 80s. Actually, augmented reality stuff that you can shake hands virtually, weird stuff going on, which would make the whole experience go different. But it's still about about connecting, right? And knowing each other, understanding each other, right? So I'm looking eventually to put together a huge sheet of who does what they're good at, where they live at, because we got to have that connection with somebody who's a CPA, who's this, who's that, because that's huge. For me, the takeaway was more organization. I'm flying a million miles an hour, and I really need to narrow down like you do. You do a good job of, you keep things blockaded to, weekdays and so like that, where I kind of just fly. And that's my weakness. Yeah. It was difficult for me to realize that was probably my stronghold, where my wife's great at it. I just need to learn how to do a good job of that. Was there something, at the conference for you, was there any kind of good stories or good laughs or good experience you had that you can share, a story that was a positive, uplifting story that maybe a new investor bought their first note or something like that? Did you run across anyone with an interesting story or a deal that was really kind of hairy?
So somebody that I've actually I knew of her years ago. And then I met her at this conference, and it turns out she's got a connection to an issue that I'm dealing with right now. And so I'm connecting with her. So the story is she's a huge REO queen. And she, back when everything was falling apart, she was in a position where she was, friends with a lot of the mortgage people that were shutting down.
Oh,
So she had a huge opportunity to go in and work with all the REOs that were coming out of that. And she had a huge team underneath her and all the rest. I bought a loan from New Century Mortgage forever ago, several years ago now. And that was, if anybody knows the history, New Century was one of the ones that kind of, it's seen as being one of the instigators, I guess, for the bad loans that were being created. And, we won't get into the controversy on that, but anyway, so I bought one of their loans, and she actually, because of her connections back then, she still knows some of the people that were involved in the company. I'm looking for some information from that company that no longer exists. But if I can get in touch with some of the playmakers that were back then, that's a huge help for me. So that was a big deal. How about you?
And you would never met her outside the conference.
No, I wouldn't have. Like I say, I knew of her 8 or 9 years ago. I'd heard about this lady and I even knew her name and everything, but I'd forgotten in the meantime. And then when I sat down at lunch and she's there and I went, wait, I know that name. I know that name. Oh yeah, that's her. And she started telling her story and I went, oh my goodness, that's her. I know this person,
Yeah.
at least by reputation, you know?
It's weird for me. I realized I needed to network with a few more people. There was people I missed during the conference, which really stuck out at me. I'm like, oh, and I think I met a bunch of new investors who were diving in, which is great to hear.
Yeah.
But I also heard some scary stories where people they didn't know what to do in situations. Maybe they got some training and all stuff, but it seemed like they were lacking that confidence.
Okay.
And for me, I like giving that confidence, but also helping them out and encourage them to networking with people. But I got some really good compliments on what we do, this real life kind of interacting in it. And that shows the fact that we're real people.
Yeah.
And that these big bad funds, meeting with, these funds are not as scary as you thought they were, Chaz looked great as usual, right? And he's not some scary fun guy that looks overwhelming.
No, regular guy.
It was cool. So I got to meet some people at Revolve too, right? That I'd never met before.
Yeah, me too.
Sat down and talked to them.
Yeah.
One of the big takeaways I had, and I'm working on, is some of the software things that we're coming out with. I got to sit down with the paper stack and says, hey, what do you guys do in the future? And I got some real good information what they're going, where they're going towards.
Oh, very good.
Said, okay, can I help out? Yes. And the community coming even closer together than it is now is what I was encouraged by.
That's great.
There's going to be some more conferences coming up, guys. I know Liz reached out to us about Expo. DME coming up in next March. If you guys can make it, great. I don't know if I'll be there. We have a vacation plan that we're just kind of playing with dates, so I'm going to try to. But we'll be posting it on our portal. But I was able to connect with people on a real life basis, which made it more valuable than anything else. And then I met with people in the after hours without getting to that kind of stuff. I was able to talk on a real level. And I think for those people that when you go to conferences and you do have a chance to talk to someone you do know, don't talk small talk, really get into what makes them successful. Even if you know them, what makes them successful? And the follow-up was like, hey, why don't you email me and connect, right? We're looking for a way to look up court cases nationally. Well, a couple of the attorneys are like, hey, Dave, why don't you do this? Whoa, right? I didn't know that was available. And I wouldn't have learned it if I didn't talk to that attorney who I've talked to a million times what to do. And I'm like, whoa, I can do this. And it was like, well, it's simple. And I just didn't know about it. It's like using Network Online. We all know about it, but some people don't. But Erin said, yes, I know it's your neck of the woods. I may be in Mexico. I don't know yet. So we'll figure it all out. But I think, though, for me, we said before we went, these conferences have a way to never disappoint ever.
No, you
money
pick
at a time is annoying, but it was so worthwhile.
So worthwhile, definitely. And like going after hours, we won't talk too much about stuff, but it's just fun. And more than anything else, it's just fun. We went out to a Texas barbecue. I've done that one other time in my life. And you get the tray with I had sausage and brisket and turkey and all this good food.
And you said that, how many people were there? I know it was Aaron and but
there were like 10 or 12 of us, something like that. Yeah, Aaron was in our crew and Jordan Wild and
we were to go and just got distracted. But you sit down with these people and you have a great meal and conversation.
And it's just fun.
It's outside the time where when you're during the day, you should be in there where people don't know. And then after hours when you're relaxing, putting your collar down, you're going out talking to people and really bouncing off of you.
Yeah.
I think people learn from us, not based on this, but just what we do good at, right? What you're good at, what we're good at, and what we make available to those.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I know that conferences are something that we use for networking.
Yeah.
Were you able to network as well as you wanted to? I know a lot of people say they don't. what were some tips that you can give those people for next time where you may have learned this time or didn't learn? What would you give advice to those people who, besides, we always said that eating lunch with someone you don't know,
Eat lunch.
business cards, how would be the best way of doing things?
Business cards and lunch are great things. Another one that I see all the time that just kind of blows my mind is when you do go back into a session, don't sit in the same place. Go, sit over here this time and over there that time. Sit beside people you don't know. And even if when you're with a partner, when Corey and I would go to conferences before, we would split up. He would go over here, I would go over here, because we want to meet as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And if it's two people together, a partnership, you're not going to be able to. You're just,
right.
Why not divide and conquer and split up, sit in different places. Every time there's a break, come back and find a new spot and just move around. Move around. Yeah.
Talk to the person next to you. Make comments during session. Oh, that was good. Get that interaction. It's definitely not a place to go if you're an introvert. It's not a good idea. If you are an introvert, you got to come out. You are, you kind of keep quiet to yourself most of the time.
I am, but it's part of the business. So get over it. Just go. Yeah.
You said the after hours and stuff like that was really helpful. I enjoy the after hours for multiple reasons. You get to sit down with people because a lot of times during the day we can't sit down for a half hour to talk to anyone. You get the time to sit down with people for a half hour. Some of the stories I heard were just awesome stuff. Like I just landed 4 deals and I'm doing this, and I made my first deal. I told them that, someone had a payoff. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, tell me about it. And hearing the stories never gets old. I can hear note stories all day long. It's kind of weird, but
well, and then comparing too, like I remember we were talking with Mike Rusica and he was talking about how many payoffs he's had this year. And I'm like, yeah, me too. And it's good to just kind of compare notes and be like, okay, so that whatever it is, okay, so that's normal, that's abnormal, whatever, just so you can get a sense of where you're at and what you can maybe expect going forward.
True. And it's weird because we talked before about our portfolios and that fact that most people have performing. It's right now that we all thought non-performing would come and it didn't. And majority of people still have these performer loans, or if it was non-performing, it's performing now for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Right. It's amazing during this time that those loans are still going at it. We saw, I don't know if you saw Gabe had posted someone he bought the loan for cheap and then he was in a spot where he got a really nice payoff. But the house value went up during the time and it's like not worth it.
Right.
But these opportunities for this situation is there and ready for you.
Yeah.
Jumping in is awesome. And I was really glad to hear other new investors talking with each other, as well as talking to more advanced people, because they can feel each other's pain and understand what each other work with.
Yeah.
But I did see some people being timid. And those are the kind of people I go up to and shake their hand and say, hey, how you doing? What you're doing here? What's your involvement? There were a couple people out there that were just blown away. Like they're REO brokers who were like, I never met anyone doing notes. I get all these reports that I have to do. And I'm like, oh, I don't like BPOs. Let's talk. Right. And it was a good conversation about a completely different topic than notes per se. And how do they do BPOs? How can I get things better done? And what's their experience?
Right.
So it's pretty cool. Hopefully your flight home was good. I know I flew down with Shantae and Quan. It was a really good 4-hour conversation with Shantae.
Yeah.
And it was upset and I couldn't stay an extra day. I got home. Hopefully you got home okay. I know they offered $800 a ticket to give up my ticket that night. I'm like, I just want to get home.
Really? Yeah. No, yeah. My flight was delayed, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Get home at 2 a.m. wasn't good for me. Moving forward, we're going to be bringing on some more special guests. If anyone out there has somebody that really would like to come on, beginner even, we'd love to have you guys on here. I'll be bringing out, you can check out the YouTube channel, all that stuff. We'll just be on the podcast so you can listen to it later. But we'll be coming out some more stuff soon and let you guys kind of heads up. We usually post what our event is on Monday, Tuesday of that week. And we're probably doing every other week just because of winter time and some stuff that's going crazy. But we hope to connect with you guys and really kind of dial in on some really high topics and
Yeah.
some things a little bit outside the box that aren't truly straight on notes because everything gets involved.
Yeah.
I'm going to try getting in some REO stuff on here, some DPO stuff, but just kind of tweak some stuff. So if you do have something, that topic you'd like to hear more about, I've heard about partials being something, but one weird thing about partials, not a lot of people are buying or selling them. And curiosity, why? What is the
Right.
stigma or the curiosity, or is it the lack of understanding?
Yeah.
And maybe we can do a calculator show of that. But if anyone else has anything else, feel free to let us know. Reach out to us,
Yeah,
and we'll go
definitely.
from there.
Yeah. Awesome.
So,
Thanks so much,
Nathan,
man. This is a lot of fun.
what do you see for the next 6 months? Do you expect anything different? Or would you learn at the conference? Anyone give me kind of hints of what you're seeing?
Here's my newest thought on all this. So we know that I mean it's plain as day, the can is being kicked down the road as far as the impending wave, however big that wave is going to be. And then here's the new wrinkle. And as Canadian, I get to be totally politically agnostic, which is fantastic. I just look at the facts. Fact is right now, Biden's approval rating is really low. So my thinking on that is that I think that the can is going to get kicked even further down the road, because nothing makes a guy look worse than a housing crisis on top of all the other garbage he's dealing with. So I anticipate it being kicked down as far as possible, particularly because there's a low approval rating right now. And so he's, he doesn't want this on top of everything else. That would get really ugly for him, politically speaking. So that's my newest thinking.
We're all guessing,
we'll see.
Right?
Yeah, we're all guessing.
The biggest takeaway for that, what I heard over and over again, is that this is different from 08. Housing prices are not going down. They're not dropping. They're staying steady. They're not raising much, but they're staying steady. Which makes me think, what do we know about the situation, and what did we learn from last time that we can apply this time? And we're not that smart to understand all this stuff, financial stuff, but we see trends and see what's going on. And if house prices are staying flat, we now have to look at the income. Is income going up or down, or whatever? And if income's going up, then it changes things a little bit, right? But feel free to just think about those kind of topics, ask questions, post, getting interacting, because I think Nathan, you're right. I think the can will kick down the curve, because this whole point of COVID was to prevent a housing crisis. They've done so much more with servicers and blocking things than we did last time ever. But as Alex Protal talked about, there's a massive level of notes being sold by Fannie and Freddie right now. That we'll see how they will trickle down, what they'll do with them. Pricing is still what it is. But you can get deals done. So cool.
Absolutely. We're still getting deals done all the time.
So awesome. Well, guys, I'm going to sign off there. Nathan, always a pleasure. I look forward to really kind of getting back involved, see what happens from there. And hopefully we see something in the next month or so. Our guess is we're probably not going to see something until the first quarter of next year. In the meantime, let's help everyone build up your systems, your practice, fine tune. So please let us know what we can do to help you get there. Bring on special guests to make sure you're ready for that first quarter bubble of what we may or may not see. So awesome.
All right.
Well,
thanks,
I appreciate it. We'll talk everyone soon. Take care, everyone.
Take care.